Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another ELESTRALS deck profile for you. You might see Arcliff on top and think, oh, are we really covering Monarch a third time? No. We are actually covering Thunder today. And also, much like my more recent deck profiles, this one will feature gameplay. Look forward to that for actually many more deck profiles to come, as today I was able to record a lot of gameplay, so hell yeah on that. But, like I said, we are actually playing the Arcliff in Thunder today. Well, Astrap, doesn't necessarily indicate Thunder alone, but yeah, so this is in the current Daybreak meta. Thunder Nexus in general is actually pretty widely considered to be just one of, if not the strongest decks. The core is just really solid, right? And Race to the Top still does end up being a very good card, even in a world where Spark It is banned, right? So there are even Fives decks that are going so far as to, include the Mount Olympus Race to the Top package. But the Thunder, it's not really a Thunder Nexus deck because we're not really doing any Nexusing. Well, a little bit, but you'll see. But the pure Thunder deck, I think, definitely is one of the strongest ways to play this kind of Race to the Top package. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. At the top end, we are playing, like I mentioned before, 2 Unks, 2 Arcliffs. There are a number of Thunder, 2 or higher Spirit cards that you could play. In addition to, or instead of Arcliff, you could also play Sonicore is another great option, or Voltempest. You could go that route with the deck. All these variants have definitely seen play and success in recent tournaments. So, on top of that, we got 3 Astrabbit. As I said before, this isn't necessarily indicative of the fact that we are Thunder, but because every deck plays Astrabbit. But we are, of course, on 3 of that. We're on 3 Elechik. This is another Thunder card that we have actually played in other decks where we want to search for Divine Runes. But, of course, here we have the benefit of also having the Thunder Spirit type, which will definitely matter for the Mount Olympus, of course. Speaking of the Mount Olympus, we have 3 copies of Jolton to search that. This is just part of what makes Thunder, so strong, is that Thunder has all of these different cards that we get to play as 3 ofs that all have really solid bodies, right? And they each add a card on cast, right? Astrabbit, of course, with the 5 defense, getting to basically look at and draw one of the top 3 cards of your deck. Jolton grabbing the Stadium, being a 4-2. The Elechik being a 4-1, that grabs the Divine. The Stadium, of course, makes the Jolton and Elechik a 5, and the Astrabbit 6 defense. Just such efficient bodies with such good and relevant effects. Speaking of efficient bodies with good effects, 3 Toxian. This is a 4-2. And it doesn't draw or search cards, but it does burn the opponent whenever it receives Thunder. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if they don't check this, you could potentially just you cast this, it gets a Thunder Spirit, let's say it swings in for 1, and if your opponent doesn't have an out to this, then you could just attach another Thunder to it to the next turn, burn another one, swing for 2, and you're already threatening a lot right there. So, also again, the 4-2 body, so good. 2 copies of Quackle. This is a 2-3 that when cast will return 3 Thunder Spirits from the Underworld to our Spirit deck. This is basically Ambrosia Plus for us, right? Because, spoiler alert, we are playing the vast majority of our Spirit deck is going to be Thunder anyway. So, Ambro, paying 1 to put 3 back is already an effect we are glad to pay for, glad to use. So having a free 2-3 body on top of it is also pretty nice. So, of course, uses up your cast, but still very worth it. And 2 copies of Eddie. This is our only non-Thunder Elestral. The only one we play in our deck. Actually, the only water cards we play in our deck are these 2 Eddies. Eddie's just such an efficient body that I think it is worth playing even without any other water cards. You could also consider playing Tsunamis. And I actually almost did play Tsunamis in this build, but I also like having just so many Thunder Spirits and never having to worry about that, basically. But yeah, Eddie is just too good to pass up, I think. Also, I will say, while all of our, dudes are very good at being proactive, right? At either proactively searching cards or burning the opponent or healing, not a lot of our dudes are reactive. And that's where Eddie comes in a lot for this deck in particular, right? The ability to play reactively and out an Elestral that's already on the board is important, which is why it's important to play Eddie. Again, even without any other water cards. So that is it for the Elestrals. For the runes, we have 2 Stadiums, the Mount Olympus, as well as 2 Divines, Zeus. These are, of course, our search targets for the Elechik and the Jolton, respectively, right? So Only playing 2 of each because these cards are searchable. Even though we are playing Race to the Top, which is reliant on having Mount Olympus in play, you still don't necessarily need 3 copies of this. Also because Mount Olympus is a stadium rune, it stays in play. So this being a stadium deck is actually kind of interesting in that, you know, you're very reliant on having the Mount Olympus in play up here for ideally your entire game. That said, other decks that are playing stadiums, that can be a little bit of a problem for you because, of course, ELESTRALS has like the similar quote-unquote old field spell rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where there can only be 1 stadium between both players in play. So, you know, your opponent's using their stadiums to out your Mount Olympus is definitely something you have to keep track of. And conversely, if your opponent's on a very stadium-focused deck, then using your Mount Olympus to out their stadiums also pretty important. And Zeus, of course, is just a great card overall. Best Divine Rune in the game, IMO. I think that's pretty widely accepted as an opinion. Race to the Top, got 3 copies of that. This is kind of like the namesake of the deck. Race to the Top says this Race to the Top can only be cast if you control, or if Mount Olympus is enchanted. So your opponent can also have it in play. Target 2 Elestrals and destroy the Elestral with the least defense. So it's not hard to have the Elestral with the most defense in play, especially if you have something like Astrabbit or the Arcolith out. The Arcolith, by the way, while the stadium's in play, will be a lot bigger than just a 6/4, which is already respectable. But, you know, even with just its own 2 spirits, it's an 8/6. But if it has all 5 on, then it is an 11/9, which is pretty ridiculous. But Race to the Top, yeah, very, very good removal. Not hard to out your opponent's stuff with it. You can also pick 2 of your opponent's monsters, right, and destroy the one with least defense. Also, you pick if tied, right? So if you have an Elestral with like 3 defense and so does your opponent, you can choose to destroy your opponents, right? So, all right, and then the only non-Omni, non-Thunder rune in the entire deck is a single copy of Earthquake. It's just a staple. I think even at 1, it's worth playing just 2 Earth Spirits just to be able to play the Earthquake. So, as alluded to before, the rest of the deck is Omni runes. For Invokes, we have 3 Ambro, duh. And then the Resting on Your Laurels. You might think, like, really resting on your laurels, even in a deck where we're playing, like, Divines and Stadiums. And yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely still warranted, because the thing about resting is that, like, if you have, like, a Divine in the Stadium and a bunch of dudes in play, you're ahead. You don't need a resting. You're fine, right? But resting is still a good catch-up tool when you're behind, right? And especially because it's limited to 1, I think it's fine to just play the 1 copy, even, again, in a deck like this where you have the Stadium and Divines in play. So for counter Omnis, we have 2 Altar of Stars. This is what I was alluding to before, and I said we can, like, kind of Nexus. Altar is really the only way we can do that. Because Sparkit is banned, the only current card that can Nexus Thunder Spirits is Larvacell, which is very specific to the Phosphocell deck. So, yeah, having any ability to Nexus would be great for this deck. I think there's at least 1 Thunder Nexus card I can remember of in the Moonrise set, but only playing the 2 Altar there, because it's not, like, integral to our strategy, like Earth, right? Like, we're not, like, necessarily a Nexus deck. 3 Gorgons, 3 PTA, and then 2 Shield of Achilles. You could play 2 Tsunamis instead of the Shields, and if you wanted to just play, like, even 1 more Water Spirit, which really wouldn't be that big of a deal. The Spirit deck is, like, it's very, very simple. It's literally just 2 Tyratlas for the Earthquake, 2 Leviathan for the Eddies, and then 16 Zaptors. So, I mean, I know I said before, like, oh, I just like having so many Zaptors, but you could cut one of these for another Leviathan and then play the Tsunamis, right? Or if you really wanted to play it safe, and this would be completely unnecessary, you could even play 2 more Leviathans. But I think at that point, that's just, like, not great Spirit math. Honestly, for 2 Eddy, 2 Tsunami, you really could just get away with only 2 Water Spirits. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I think that's actually fine. But because we already play so many Zaptor, it wouldn't be a big deal at all to just commit 1 more to a Water. Again, if you want to play the Tsunamis. I think there is an argument for Shield as well. Like, in a meta especially where, like, big dudes are becoming more of a thing, right? Like decks that just play big dudes, like being able to shield and bounce stuff like a Chronodile, or even, like, you know, a Volt Tempest or something like that, a Waylands, right, I think is pretty powerful because, of course, when you're bouncing a 2-spirit or higher dude, like, yeah, that's more expensive off the shield, but it's also way more efficient of a form of removal, right? If you do this on a 1-spirit, you're basically delaying it. It'll come out again the next turn, which is fine. Sometimes that's okay, but this is like more of a form of hard removal for the higher spirit stuff, so... It's up to debate, you know. Of course, there's so many different ways that you can play this deck in general. So, like I said, we do have some gameplay lined up for this deck here. So why don't we go ahead and check that out here. Okay, we're gonna dive right into our Thunder games against JJPM. As always, as ever, if you can go ahead and check out the description below to find my opponent's socials. JJ is a very, very good ELESTRALS player. Has topped, I think, 2 or at least 1 tournament I can remember off the top of my head. I think it's been multiple, though. So eager to get some playtesting in against him. He's going to go first and start with the Rumacole. JJ is going to be on fire next. It's a deck that I am actually quite eager to try myself at some point. So Rumacole is going to go ahead and grab the Stadium, the Volcanic Forge there, setting a card and then passing. So the Rumacole is only a 2/2 body, not very threatening by itself, but that Stadium definitely sets up both Stoke the Forge and Kindleo as well, potentially. So, starting off with a Toxian here. Of course, when I put that Thunder on, JJ's going to be forced to expend a Spirit there. I'm going to throw down a couple of face downs here, and then we can use the Toxian to battle over the Rumacole. Except there's an Argo coming down here, so this being one of the Nexus banks that Fire Nexus often is on the Argo for the Necklace of Harmonia. That is going to give the Rumacole +5, but of course during each of JJ's in phases, while the Necklace is in play, he is going to have to expend, I believe it's 2? Or at least 1. No, I think it's 1 in order to keep it in play. It's a maintenance cost of 1, but yeah, those Fire Spirits under there, like, you can definitely do a lot of things with that, of course. You can use them to cast runes, or you can Nexus them from the Kindleo. I don't have any ELESTRALs in play, though, so a Kindleo wouldn't really do that much here, although you could still, in theory, Nexus them and swing in for multiple spirits of damage. So JJ considering his options here. Of course, if he doesn't do anything with the Necklace of Harmonia's spirits, like I said, he is going to have to pay that maintenance fee and expend there, so... Alright, let's see what ends up happening. Alright. Considering his moves, looks like he does have a card coming down here. Grabbing the spirits for... we're ascending, that's right. So, yeah, I knew the Necklace of Harmonia wasn't sticking around. I was just trying to remember exactly what happened here. We're ascending into a both correctly enchanted yet also still wet puppy here. JJ attempting to play around a possible Tsunami. I guess Thunder does sometimes play it, but usually the only water you play is Eddy. Or if that's the case for our build, then from what I could tell, a lot of builds in general too. So, considering my options here against the Necruff here, I do have a couple of back row. Don't quite remember off the top of my head which ones I had face down here. So, cast of the Necruff looks like that went through, but I'm going to shield. Okay, that's what I thought happened here. So this is a particularly good shield because I get to bounce back the Necruff, which is a 1 cost, but I still get to, take off multiple spirits there. So overall, not a bad position for us to be in. Pretty advantageous. Going to go for another Toxian. Yeah, I really like playing the Toxian in this kind of a game state where, like, I'm already, ahead on board, right? Just getting in that extra burn at a time when I don't need to be playing anything else is going to put that pressure on and just try to keep me ahead, ideally. Not just in terms of the game state, but also in terms of spirit count. So, another Necruff coming down from JJ here. This one I am going to PTA. Yeah, so that's why we didn't PTA the Necruff that came down last turn. Because, we could just shield it, so... So yep, it's a 3-attack Necruff now to my 4-attack Toxian. JJ throwing down a card. We know he still has the Volcanic Forge in hand, but we'll see if it actually ends up coming down here. It does. So the Volcanic Forge is... Oh, wait, maybe not. I remember he was thinking about it pretty heavily here. The Volcanic Forge would buff the Necruff up to 4 even under the PTA and let it crash into the Toxian. And that is going to happen here. which is pretty ideal, honestly, because otherwise I just pay out the PTA, and then the Toxin gets, I potentially re-enchant to burn another one and then swing for 2. This way, the Necref also forces me to expend from its effect as well, which is not bad for JJ there. So, looking at my graveyard here, considering our options. Yeah, no bodies on board on either side here. JJ's got 3 cards in hand. Going for the Quackle here. Gonna heal back 3. Again, this is a pretty good opportunity to do something like this, right? Because, like I said, we are already pretty ahead on the in the game state. So, you know, if JJ had like a Necref out and I didn't have anything, it'd be kind of awkward to like summon a Quackle even in defense mode here. JJ is actually going to use the Gorgons on the Quackle, which might seem a little bit weird at first, but if you think about it, it is paying 2 spirits to stop me from getting 3, but it's actually more like paying 1, because if he didn't use the Gorgons, I'd still swing in for 1 with the Quackle, right? So JJ is basically paying 1 to deny me healing 3. Which is not bad, but he is burning, no pun intended, through those spirits kind of quickly. And that is kind of a thing that does happen sometimes with the Fire Nexus deck, right? Is that it often does need to spend a lot of spirits to set up its play. Also, it's kind of unlucky for me to have not found Mount Olympus yet, between the 2 copies as well as Jolton. You know, ideally we can get that Volcanic Forge off the board here soon, but we'll see what happens. Alright, drawing for turn after the Rummikole battles over the Quackle. And sure enough, yeah, I wondered as soon as I was saying it, I was like, did I just draw the Jolton next turn? I am slowly remembering how this game plays out. So yep, here is the Jolton. Jolton is, of course, going to grab the aforementioned Mount Olympus. And this is what I was touching on before in the profile section when I talked about how, like, you know, stadiums really matter because it's like old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Field spell rules where, you know, there can only be one play at a time. So when you're in a stadium versus stadium matchup, it's like not only is getting your stadium on board good in terms of like getting your buffs up and also enabling stuff like Race to the Top, but also taking away their Forge. Similarly debuffs their board and denies them stuff like Stoke the Forge. So don't have any back rows to set, but we are going to Jolton battle over the Rummikole before passing back over to JJ here. See what he's got for follow-up. I think one of the cards... Is one of the cards Kinleo or is it Stoke the Forge? I actually can't remember if he activated the Stoke last turn or not. Off the top of my head. Okay, it's an Astrabbit coming down here in defense mode. JJ looking at his top 3, considering. For grabbing 1 and then shuffling the others back here. Let's see what ends up coming down here. He's got 4 spirits left. Also worth noting that the Astrabbit does, of course, get a buff from my Mount Olympus because it is Thunder Enchanted. So his Astrabbit is a 3/6. So, of course, even if it didn't get buffed, the Jolton would still be a 5/3 and wouldn't be able to battle over the 5 defense anyway. But here I'm going to throw down my own Rabbit in defense mode. Going to use the effect to look at the top 3. I put whatever is in my hand back pretty quickly. I also noticed I didn't look at my hand. I noticed that usually if I have to think about it, I usually have to end up looking at my hand before picking the Astrabbit card, but no, I think I actually know what I put in hand. If I remember right, I think it was actually an Arcolith, which is kind of something I've been looking for to an extent all game, but especially in this game state, it's definitely not bad to have, so yeah, you know what, because I'm looking to see how many spirits I have in the yard, making sure that we're still good. I would say still as if the Quackle had resolves, but it didn't, that's right. So we definitely still had 3 in there. Anyway, setting a card before passing back over, so alright, Ambro coming down from JJ, spending the water to heal back here. Yeah, I remember he was saying that, you know, before we were playing our games that often it feels like the Fire Nexus deck, whether or not it wins depends on if you draw Amber or not, which I think, again, is indicative of just how, again, pricey setting up can be. Now, here's a Lavalith, the best Fire Elestral in the game, and one of the only, actually the only limited Elestral. Here I am going to Gorgon's Gaze the Lavalith, paying out the 2, which will of course prevent it from being able to attack here. Yeah, I still have quite a few spirits left in my deck there, which is pretty nice. So, yeah, at this point, JJ has, I think, 3 spirits left? Or I think it was 4, and now it's 2. So, Earthquake on the bunny here. Yep, so 2 left. And you can probably already guess how this game's about to end, but it's actually going to end in a very, very cool way. So, here what I can do is I'm going to send over the Jolton for the Arcolith, and that the Unk has come down, and of course Unk can grab the 3 Thunder Spirits from the yard. Now, with 5 Thunder Spirits, the Mount Olympus buffs the Arcolith up to an 11-9, and in this case, I can just simply battle over the attack mode Lavalith to deal 3 Spirits worth of damage, which is going to not only deplete JJ's Spirit deck, but also deal the finishing blow at the same time. So, alright, going into our next game here. This is game 2, yeah, so JJ's going to go first here. Alright, so Vipyro coming down, and it's another Rummikole. Of course, this grabs either the Stadium or the Stoke the Forge. I believe that is the Stoke the Forge. Or no, the Stadium, rather. The Forge itself, the Volcanic Forge. Sometimes it is kind of hard to tell on webcam with the art, because they look kind of similar. Alright, setting 1 card before passing back over to me. Here I'm going to Astrap it in attack mode, which might look a little bit weird, but you might be able to guess why I'm doing that. So, looking at my top 3, checking back with my hand before picking one of the cards up. Alright, so after I shuffle up, you'll get to see what I'm cooking up here. Again, it might be kind of obvious. But we are going to end up throwing down, yep, the Mount Olympus, which does buff my Astrap at 2 or 3/6. Get to throw down 3 face-down cards here. So, yeah, normally, even if I had the Mount Olympus, if I didn't have any other back rows, or if I didn't have any back rows at all, period, even after the Astrap, or I guess it would have to be before the Astrap resolves. Basically, the point I'm getting at here is that even with the Mount Olympus buff, I think I'd probably still put the Astrap in defense mode if I didn't have any back rows, but the fact that I have so many means that I feel very safe putting this Astrap in attack mode. Except for the resting on your laurels. A little bit unfortunate that, the bunny gets eaten by that, but we still, of course, have plenty of counterplay. Speaking of counterplay, there's, again, that Volcanic Forge, coming down here, and this time over the Mount Olympus, which, again, that Stadium interaction does end up being very important in a matchup like this. So, JJ going for his own bunny. I am going to Gorgon's the bunny. Very, very worth it here because it not only stops the effect, but also stops me from taking the point of damage. So again, basically just spending 1 rather than 2 in order to negate the Astrap. So I'm going to throw it out of my Toxian here, which does, of course, not only burn, but also threatens to battle over the Astrap. We're going to set a card first before entering battle and going Toxian over the bunny. I will say, I think I misplayed earlier. Tsunami coming down here. Tsunami, rather. I think I misplayed earlier when I went attack mode Rabbit and then Mount Olympus. Because that's the thing. Like, he had just Rummikole. I knew he had the Forge in hand. And, the thing is, one of my face downs is actually Altar of Stars. I remember that much. And if I had had the ability to Nexus here, it would have been a lot better. But I think I should have just played my Stadium a lot smarter. I'd like to actually play more, matchups like this in the future for this reason, that, getting used to the idea of holding on to a Stadium to counterplay over your opponents rather than, running yours out, especially for, so little reason. I could have just summoned an Astrap in defense mode and also set 3. That is definitely a good enough turn, as opposed to the greedy play I did. Alright, we're going to ascend once more over this Toxian, going for the Unk. Not quite as good this time because the Astrap is in defense mode, so I don't get to battle for huge damage right off the bat, but at this point I'm pretty sure that's my only way over the bunny, so we're definitely going to go ahead and take it. We get some of those back rows too.
And here is the Kindleo. So that's coming down here. I am going to PTA, paying off of the Unk. Because I know it's coming here. Yeah, Kindleo, after Nexusing, gets to target and destroy the Arcolith, which is pretty sad for me. And then Ambro being cast off that spirit that got put onto the Kindleo. So, again, with that Ambrosia, the fire Nexus deck kind of living or dying by it. Maybe it does, I don't know. But if I didn't mention already, I am going to try playing out a very similar list to this one, I think, at some point in the fairly near future. Alright, drawn for turn. Yeah, here I have to expend a draw, setting another card, and then passing. Let's see what JJ's up to. Got another Astrabbit. Really debating on the mode. That's a pretty big debate in a game state like this. I've definitely had this debate a few times myself of, do I put the bunny in attack mode to try to battle in, or do I leave it in defense mode? Here I am going to PTA the rabbit. This will stop it basically from being able to attack effectively, right? Because it goes down to 0 attack, and 0 attack Elestrals don't actually deal damage, so I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to PTA here. Well, you know what? It definitely is worth it too, because I had to expend a draw, so I probably don't have any Elestrals in hand that could even battle over the Astrabbit at this point. Let's see what I draw here. Hopefully something good. Checking my yard real quick. Considering my moves. I probably, you know what? Because I am starting to get a little bit low. I'm probably considering... Okay, no, never mind. I was going to say whether or not to expend a draw. But I think this is pretty easy here to go Jolton. Oh, but you know what? I'm pretty sure... Yeah, you know what? I know one of the cards in my hand is the other Mount Olympus. Because, yeah, I didn't activate the effect here. So, yeah, by not activating Jolton's effect, I'm pretty much telling my opponent that. But JG, of course, would already know anyway, because if I just, went to go search and failed to find, then obviously the Mount Olympus is in hand. So Eddie coming down from JG here does get over the Jolton. Here you'll notice I'm holding on to this Mount Olympus, mostly because it's my last one, right? And I haven't seen Race to the Top yet, so... if one good Eddie deserves another, I'm going to use my Eddie to battle over JJ's here before passing right on back over to him. It's grabbing a fire for the Necruff. That is going to be enough to battle over the Eddie. And unfortunately for me, the Necruff does also deal the point of burn damage. I'm pretty low on my Spirit Decker. At least I'm getting there at this point. See if I can find anything for this Necruff. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I don't. Yep, I just got to expend a draw again here, which is, again, it's just a pretty brutal game state to be in for me. All right, here we did find the... Oh, wait, is that the same? Oh, yeah, no, okay, I was going to say. That was on the same turn I expended to draw, and no, JJ's reminded me of that here. Sometimes I get really excited, and I'll just kind of go for the play, even if it's not a legal one, but oh well, not a huge deal. It was a simple take back. So I'm going to EQ the Necruff here before setting and then passing. I'm at 2 spirits left here. So pretty not great for me. But JJ is going to expend a draw. Not a bad sign. Alright, my move. And we do have, that Elchik again. So I'm going to use the Elchik effect. Except for the Gorgon's Gaze coming down here. So no Zeus for us. Can't attack to the Gorgon's Gaze yet. So just going to pass back on over. I think there's another expend a draw, which again is a pretty good sign for me overall. So, then my turn, I just drew. I only have 1 spirit left, so even if I don't have an Elestral, I'm pretty sure... It'd be pretty rough for me to actually try to expend a draw here. Yep, I'm using my last spirit for another Elestral for the Jolton. Let's see if I can't just start swinging in and hopefully get JJ down before he can find something. Looks like he is going to PTA the Jolton here. After I'm going to swing for 2, and he's going to pay out the PTA. Yeah, so that's a lot of damage from me, but at the same time, I don't have any spirits left. This Elchick, I'm like ride or die with it. And speaking of dying, it would not be hard for that to happen to this Elchick here at all. Really just hoping I can find an Ambrosia. Even though it kind of sucks I have to cast it off the Elchick, but, you know, definitely can't be, yeah, beggars and choosers. And yeah, it's going to do it at this point, because Necref can battle over Elchick, and then I will lose due to the burn effect right here and now. So, yeah, thanks to JJ for getting these games with me. We did go to game 3 and I won it, but it was kind of like a quicker game from what I remember. So we're just going to call it here, I think, for this one. Thanks as always for watching these deck profiles. I super appreciate the support here on my ELESTRALS channel. Definitely subscribe if you're looking forward to some more gameplay and stuff. But that'll do it for this one. This is XLEX signing out. Hoping you have a fantastic day.